Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Doug Larkin from Montclair State University.
And I'm Dr. Chrissy Cross from Stephen F. Austin State University.
Hi, and we're part of the leadership team for the Science Teaching and Learning Special Interest Group, or SIG, for AERA. And this is a very brief webinar on proposal writing advice for this coming year's AERA conference in Philadelphia.
To get us started, just a quick overview of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about ourselves, where we come from, what is AERA, how to do an AERA proposal, some submission types, what kind of format you need to think about, what timeline you can prepare for, how your proposal will be reviewed, and just some general parting advice.
So my name is Doug Larkin. I am currently the program chair for the Science Teaching and Learning SIG, and I work at Montclair State University as a professor in the Department of Teaching and Learning.
And I'm Dr. Chrissy Cross. I'm the chair of the Science Teaching and Learning SIG for AERA for this year. I'm an associate professor at Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas.
And
go
ahead.
So the Science Teaching and Learning SIG is basically a smaller group of researchers who specialize in science curriculum and instruction. It includes lots of different people who have lots of different types of teaching experience, but one thing that brings us all together is we love science teaching and learning. This is a great platform for you if your expertise has something to do with science teaching and learning in a public school classroom, and it is a great place for you to get that research out that you've been working on in that content area.
And just a little bit about the structure of AERA, if it's new to you. So AERA has both divisions, which are sort of the large scale groupings of research areas within our field. And then it also has the special interest group. So currently there are 12 divisions in AERA. And some science folks also find a home in Division C in learning instruction. There is a science specific part of that division, but that's a little different than what we do. Ours is focused on science teaching and learning, and that is one of the special interest groups. And so there's lots of special interest groups within AERA, over 150 at this point. And each one has, if you go to the AERA website, has a little bit of information about each SIG.
Okay, so what is an AERA proposal? So when you go into AERA's system and you sign up and everything, you're going to create a proposal to present your research, not to necessarily propose research, right? So this is ideally on research you have already completed and started working on your writing about, whether your goal is to do a peer-reviewed journal article or even just like a white paper for a graduate class. You can use that research to frame your proposal for AERA. If you have collected data with human subjects, you really need to have your IRB already approved or within the approval process by the time you present at AERA. You can work with others. If you have like a group of students in a graduate class that have worked together on a project, AERA is a great place for you to kind of get that research out and work together so you don't have to do it by yourself. However, if you want to do it by yourself, you can also do it by yourself.
So there are a few different types of ways to submit a proposal, 7 different types of proposals you can submit to AERA. And we are going to talk about the place-based versus virtual in a moment. So both of these types, either the individual or the session, can be submitted to both the place-based and the virtual. So for an individual paper, you're presenting one paper and it can have one or more co-authors. But there, even though we call it a paper, it can be a little confusing because there's actually 3 different types of papers. There's a paper session, and that might be the most the one that comes to mind the most readily, where somebody is standing up and presenting for maybe 12 to 15 minutes with some slides. Then there are poster sessions, And AERA has moved to all electronic posters, but there's still large displays that the presenter stands in front of, or roundtable sessions where you're grouped in tables in a large room with lots of different people presenting at once, hopefully around similar subjects. And within our SIG, they're always around science, teaching, and learning. And so all of those are individual sessions. And the one thing is, if at some point in the submission process, you're going to be asked to check a box, which types are you willing to present in? And one of the things that we always tell people who are considering submitting to the science, teaching, and learning SIG is the more flexible you are, and if you say, I'll submit in any presentation style, then you're more likely to get accepted. And so if you are presenting, like if you don't want to do a poster, that's fine, but we might have the spot for a poster and yours might be the next one in line. But if you said you don't want to submit as a poster, we're not going to give you a session that you don't want to present it. So just know that in advance. Selecting a wider range of types allows you a greater likelihood of getting admitted, getting accepted, sorry. Session submissions, I will say these are somewhat few and far between, and we don't encourage this unless you've already done a lot of planning in advance and kind of corralled a group to do this with. So for a symposia, that's where you have 3 to 6 papers, all on a closely related topic, and you may also have identified a discussant ahead of time who will discuss these papers. There's also a structured poster session, and again, this can be actually up to, I believe, 10 or 12 posters, where, again, and this is only place-based, this one, but this is where, you have a brief introduction, everybody says 1 or 2 things about their poster, and then you have some time for people to walk around and look at them. Those ones actually are physical posters. Those ones are not electronic. And then there's the working group roundtable, which again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. We don't do much of that in our SIG. But the idea is that you want to think ahead of time and read the call very carefully before you decide what type of submission you're going to send our way.
Okay, so oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, these are pictures of these. I should have showed these while we were doing, but this is what a roundtable looks like. This is what a poster session looks like with those electronic boards. And this is what a paper presentation looks like, in a room.
So one thing that you really want to think about before you get started on your presentation is whether you want to do the place-based conference, which is where you are physically present at the conference, or the virtual conference. So this year, the place-based was in Chicago, April 13th through 16th, and there was a virtual May 4th and 5th. When you go in to submit your proposal, you have to choose in person or virtual, and you can't switch back and forth. Like once you choose, you're there, that's what you get. So if you submit to place-based, plan on physically attending AERA 2024 in Philadelphia. If you do virtual, don't think that you can just switch to place-based if you suddenly decide you want to go.
Yeah, and some pros and cons of submitting to place-based versus virtual. The place-based, it's better networking. You can kind of connect with people. You can keep the conversation going after the session's end. You can focus on the research, getting away from your home institution. There is something to that where you can just focus on the conference. There is an exhibit hall. It can be a chance to escape. But the downside is it can be more expensive. You have the logistics of travel. We were just talking about post-conference exhaustion. And it can be overwhelming, but again, within our SIG, we try not to make it like that. With the virtuals, it's less expensive, but you do still need to be an AERA member. We have a wider international representation in the virtual part, and it can be more accessible for AERA members with disabilities. And again, the downside is sort of the inverse of the other thing. You have a little less connection, interaction with others. It's bounded in time and quantity of that intersection with your actual life, and real life does tend to intrude a little bit more with the virtual one.
Okay, so this is kind of a timeline for what it looks like from the time you propose till the time the conference actually rolls around. So in May, the call for proposals usually comes out, so that way you can start planning what type of research you want to submit. Plan to submit by July 31st. That is the date to submit for the 2024 AERA conference. You have to get it in by 11:59 Pacific time. In August, reviewers will be assigned by whatever division or SIG you submit to, and reviews will be completed. Each proposal has to have at least 3 people who review it. This is one thing that makes sure that AERA has good quality research that is presented at their conference. We have 3 people who peer review your research. In September, the division and section chairs get together and we look at all the reviews and we decide what's called a cut score to see who made it, who didn't. We also get to see how many people we get to accept for our SIG or division. In October, they work on getting the program done. November, usually the very 1st of November, the decisions will be emailed out to everybody that submitted through the proposal system, but there's not going to be a time for you to present yet. That doesn't happen until February, sometimes March. The place-based AERA 2024 conference is in Philadelphia, April 11th through April 14th. And the virtual conference is actually April 25th through 26th. It says May, but it's actually April.
Sorry about that. I was trying to fix it on the fly. Yeah, April. Okay, and so the nice thing about reviewing for AERA is it actually helps you with your proposal writing. So if you have not reviewed before, we want to encourage you, when that call comes out, probably for next year's conference, because I think this year's call has already come and gone. But it is good to be a reviewer because it actually helps you in learning how to write a good proposal. And there are criteria that reviewers are asked to speak to. So it's actually very helpful if you structure your paper with the headings of those review criteria. So have a paper that says have a section that says objectives and purposes, section that says perspectives or theoretical framework, etc. Methods, techniques, or modes of inquiry, data sources, evidence, objects, or materials. And again, you may not have each one of these things depending on your project, but you want to use at least one of those in a heading. Really important is saying what the scientific or scholarly significance of the study or the work as a whole is. Even if it's a conceptual paper, saying here's why it's important. Answering that so what question is often the thing that makes or breaks a proposal. You also want to say how your proposal engages with the broader aims of AERA's diversity, equity, and/or inclusion efforts. And as a final thing, it's always nice when there's a word count at the bottom. And so showing that, yes, you have stayed under the 2,000 word requirement is really helpful. We ask that you don't actually put you can use tables and charts and things, of course, in your paper. But if you make it a picture and it's not readable by the word count part, that means it's also not readable to somebody who's using an accessibility screen reader. And they might not be able to read that table or chart. And because we are looking to make sure that all of our work is accessible to people with audio and visual disabilities in particular for the reviewing process, we do ask that you keep that in mind while you're writing your proposal.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to add real quick. I know that some reviewers that I have worked with will not look at a paper if it's just like an actual paper that they upload that's like 7,000 words. It's an automatic reject. So don't just take a paper you've already written and put it into the system. Actually create a proposal according to the guidelines. Okay, so a little bit of parting advice. Proposal acceptance can be easier within a SIG since SIGs are a little bit smaller and the reviewers are more specialized in their expertise. Make sure that you connect the call for the SIG and the national conference to your proposal. Like make your research fit with what is happening on a national level with science curriculum instruction. Make sure you ask advice from people that you know have already gone to AERA and who submit regularly to AERA. Most of us that have done it are happy to help and give a few guidelines. You don't have to be in a specific division or SIG to apply to it or submit to it. I will say AERA is more fun when you work with your colleagues to create a project where you can all go and present and get it done as a group. One thing that helps get it in, I think, is being flexible. And I think Doug said that at the beginning. Use any format you can. You can make your research work on a poster, a roundtable, symposium, anything. Obviously, if you do the virtual, don't put poster because you won't have any actual interaction with people in that session. Posters are electronic. So don't be planning to create a paper poster, although it may be amazing and have some beautiful graphics on it. Make sure that it works on a computer as well. I would highly encourage everybody to go into AERA and be a proposal reviewer, even if you've never done it before. It's a great experience just to read proposals. You'll only get about 10 of them per SIG or division. So it's really not a huge burden to go in, and you can probably knock it out in a couple hours. But it's really helpful to see the structure and the connections to the call and just different ways of presenting your research.
Okay, I believe that's the last slide. So thank you, everybody who's watching this, and we wish you the best of luck in preparing your proposals. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at AERA STL. It's also a nice way to contact us. Am I forgetting anything there, Chrissy, about wrapping this up?
That's it. I think that's some great advice, and I hope this is helpful to anybody that wants to submit this year.
Okay. Well, thanks, everybody.